Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Alexander Mobbs. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage announce Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, announce Australia fair.
Please be seated if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Gordon Dow. Gordon Dow was born on the 8th of September 1880 to William and Isabella Dow of Emerald Hill in South Melbourne, Victoria. His father had come to Australia from Scotland and worked for many years as an engineer, but his first love was violin making. When Gordon was still a small boy, his father retired from engineering and became a renowned expert on violin construction, with a little workshop he used to restore violins that were sent all over the world. Gordon was educated at the Dorcas Street School in Melbourne. He became a well-known figure in South Melbourne and a popular sportsman. He played cricket with the South Melbourne Cricket Club, second 11, and was one of the leading players of the successful Leopold Football Club. His oldest brother, William, went on to be the city treasurer for South Melbourne. But on the outbreak of war in 1914, Gordon held the more modest job of bookkeeper for Macaulay's Furniture Warehouse. Gordon Dow enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in July 1915. He served in a number of training depots in Australia for several months, including Broadmeadows, Royal Park and Ballarat, probably in an administrative capacity relating to his bookkeeping skills. He received notification that he would be leaving for active service overseas in early March 1916, and so, on the 3rd of March 1916, just days before he left Australia, Gordon married Amanda Jackson at St. Silas Church in Albert Park. Private Gordon Dow was first sent to Egypt, where he served with the 2nd Training Battalion, again probably in an administrative function, for several months. He also served with the 1st Australian Division Base Details in England, before being transferred to the 5th Battalion in November 1916. Less than 2 weeks after joining his battalion on the battlefields of France, Private Dow was wounded in the face by a bomb blast that killed 1 man and wounded 13 others. His wounds were not considered serious, and after a few days in hospital in Etaples, he was ready to return to his battalion. Private Dow returned to the 5th Battalion in the field on the 2nd of January 1917. At that time, the Australian infantry were rotating in and out of the front line on the Somme. It was a bitterly cold winter, and active operations had died down for some time. This meant that defensive work, construction, and surviving the cold, wet, and snowy conditions became a part of daily life. Nevertheless, battalions did sometimes send patrols of men into no man's land to keep an eye on enemy activity and bring back any information they could. On the 10th of February 1917, just 1 month and 8 days after he rejoined his battalion, Private Dow volunteered to be a member of one such raiding party, comprising 4 officers and 103 other ranks. Attacking a German-held position near Bazonterre-le-Petit, known as Bayonet Trench, the party was held up by enemy barbed wire emplacements and suffered a number of casualties before being forced to withdraw. One of the 8 men killed on the raid was Private Gordon Dow. He was shot in the head and chest and died soon after reaching the dressing station. His body was brought into the back lines by the raiding party and he was buried nearby. In Australia, news of Gordon Dow's death was reported in the South Melbourne newspapers. A report in the Record noted that what makes the news sadder still than such news would otherwise have been is that the deceased was married a few days prior to his departure for the front, smiling, cheerful, and determined to do his duty for the Empire. Mingled with the sorrow that is felt at the loss of such an estimable citizen is a deep and abiding sympathy for the bereaved widow, parents and relatives. Today, Private Gordon Dow lies near Bazenton-le-Petit Military Cemetery under the words, "Beloved husband of Amanda Dow, he bravely answered the call." He was 35 years old. His widow Amanda, having spent just 2 days with her new husband before he left for active service overseas, never remarried. Gordon Dow's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Gordon Dow, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.